Kubernetes as a container orchestrator beats its competitors because of its reliability and scalability features. And today we are going to see controllers, which is one of the features that makes Kubernetes scalable and reliable as it should. Now let's do a quick recap. We are talking about a family multi-cuisine restaurant. Kiosk or receptionist can help you book a table with just 3 questions. Coordinator takes you to the right room. Waiter records your table number and responsible for your orders to reach your table. Bouncer ensures the room capacity is well managed without any issues. Common kitchen serves all the restaurant. All information about you, your table, orders, etc. is stored in the computer. Now with just a snap of a finger, let's convert this restaurant setup to Kubernetes architecture. Let's see this overlay of Kubernetes architecture with our restaurant setup. Whole restaurant represents a Kubernetes cluster. Kiosk is our kubectl, command line tool to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. Family represents a pod in Kubernetes. A pod is a wrapper around one or more containers. Every family member can be considered as a separate container. Each of these cuisine room represents a worker node where you can actually deploy multiple pods. Each pods are nothing but a group of your containers. Waiter represents the kube proxy component responsible for data traffic to and from pods. It also records the IP address of pods to locate them right. Just like our waiter brings food to the right table by remembering the table number. Bouncer represents the kubelet, which is responsible for the node stability by managing resources like memory and CPU limits, also controlling misbehaving pods from nodes. We'll see more on that in later sessions. Receptionist, coordinator, and kitchen forms together the control plane or the master node of the Kubernetes cluster. Receptionist, who is the entry point of the restaurant, represents Kube API server. Every interaction to the cluster happens via this component. Just like the coordinator decides which room to take you, Kube scheduler component is responsible for scheduling the pods to the right worker nodes. Kitchen supervisor is responsible to give specific instructions to the cooking team based on the order, who represents a controller or a kube controller manager in Kubernetes architecture. I'll explain this using a demo little later. The computer that stores all this information maps to etcd or etcd key value storage, which stores all cluster data. Now I hope you understood how this whole restaurant represents a Kubernetes cluster with single master and multiple worker nodes. Controllers. Controllers is an important part of Kubernetes. They are nothing but a control loop which keeps looking at the desired state and the actual state in the cluster. As I mentioned in the previous video, Kubernetes is a desired state machine, right? To explain desired state machine better, let's take example of your air conditioner at your home. The way air conditioner works is that you specify a temperature to it. So that is the desired state that you want. It starts measuring the room temperature and then it will start cooling your room, right? For example, you expected the room to be in 20 degrees, but your room currently is in 35 degrees. Air conditioner will keep cooling your room till it reaches 20 degrees. Once the temperature reaches 20 degrees, air conditioner will keep continuously monitoring the temperature in your room. In case if it exceeds or if it gets reduced, it will automatically put back the temperature to 20 degrees. It's exactly the same way desired state machines work. To explain daemon sets, let's take an example of tours and travels. So this is a tours and travel company. They actually arrange different travel for different destinations and lots of people come to them. At a time they manage around 20 families. Problem with managing this many families are it's hard to manage them using a single travel guide. So the company decided that it will split its travel guides by grouping the families based on the number of members in the family. So here they divided families into 4 members, 3 members, or the family with more number of people in a separate group. Now let's focus on this particular travel guide who is dealing with family with 4 people. So these families includes our Mr. Bribes, Mr. Bites, and also Mr. Buy. Get a closer look. It's nothing but Bribe by Bites, which is our channel name. If you are not subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe. Okay, the main responsibility of this travel guide is also whenever he reaches a new country, he actually books a restaurant for them to eat. Let's take the example, this particular travel guide is taking these 3 families to India and they are reaching our family multi-cuisine restaurant. So, very similar to the analogy that we discussed in the previous session, the way it works is receptionist is going to ask the famous question, what cuisine you are interested in, how many adults and how many children are your family, and of course you can optionally say you have other people joining. Travel guide answers that they are preferring Indian cuisine and he is looking for seats for 3 families. Each family will have 2 adults and 2 kids. If we compare this with the previous session of Mr. Bibes requesting or Mr. Bites requesting, they were requesting only for their family. So in this case, the travel guide is requesting on behalf of the families and is requesting in bulk. He is basically telling I need 3 families with 2 adults and 2 kids to be accommodated in Indian cuisine. Or Indian cuisine, as I stay corrected. So Mr. Bribes enters the room and then they got allocated by seats. Similarly, Mr. Bites also gets their seats allocated. As there is no additional seats for Mr. Buy family, they have to stay in the waiting area. All this thing is coordinated by the coordinator, waiter and bouncer as we explained in the previous session. If you have not seen that video, go ahead and click our playlist and find that video. I will also leave the link in the description. You can also click on the top right corner of this video. Now summarizing, what is our travel guide responsible for? He books a table on behalf of the families. He ensures everyone is safe and satisfied. For our second analogy, let's take another example. We are talking about food inspection services. These are set of people who are responsible to get into any restaurant and to identify whether it meets the quality control that is there. Again, the same questions are asked by the receptionist. Food Squad answers he needs 1 adult chair in every cuisine room. And that's what he specifically needs. He wants to put an inspector in every room at the same time so that they can monitor the quality of the food that is being produced by each cuisine in the restaurant. So the way it works is the inspector is again coordinator. They take a seat in every room and they get their individual seats in every room at the same time so that they can monitor the quality of the food being delivered. Summarizing it, the Food Squad leader books a table on behalf of each inspector. He ensures 1 inspector is placed in every cuisine room. Now, how this maps to the analogy versus reality, right? So we talked about a travel guide. He is booking table on behalf of families. He also ensures everybody is safe and satisfied, which is equivalent to the concepts of deployment. So this is one of the controllers in Kubernetes called deployments. It is again based on declarative desired state, like I explained with the air conditioner example. It ensures the requested pod replicas are deployed and monitored. It's okay if you are not understanding these statements now, but we'll see it clearly in the demo. The second analogy that we talked about is a Food Squad lead. He books a table on behalf of each inspector. He ensures 1 inspector is placed in every cuisine room. Now that maps to the in reality to daemon set. It's again a declarative desired state. It ensures that all or some of the nodes runs a copy of the pod. In our example, it's going to be every node or every cuisine room has an inspector placed. The other concept that we are going to see in this session is jobs or cron job. They are actually 2 different concepts. I don't see a reason why we should have an analogy. But if you really need an analogy, it could be like a vegetable vendor who is coming to the restaurant. He periodically comes, all he does is delivers the vegetables and he leaves. So job runs a pod that will complete a task. And that's what it will do. It will start a task, it will complete it. Similar to the vegetable vendor, he comes, he delivers the vegetable, he goes away. Right? A cron job, it's just a variation of job which runs periodically. That if you want to run that particular job in a periodic fashion, for a vegetable vendor needs to deliver the vegetables to the restaurant every week. So that becomes periodic activity, and then you need a cron job for this. Okay, let's start with our demo using deployments. As mentioned in our example analogy, we explained deployment is very similar to the Indian travel guide. Right? So I'm creating a deployment. Deployment also has a very similar metadata like we created pod in the last session. You can specify a name. You can specify again a label which can be selected in some other scenarios. And then the specification of the deployment itself. It has something called replicas. So now this is different than what we mentioned in the pod, right? When we create a pod specification, all we specified was how a pod looked like. So this is the example we used in the last session. If you see, this is our pod YAML file. All we specified is this is how the pod looks like. And then it had its own labels, selectors, different containers that we created, right? But when we applied the pod, all it created is a single instance of that pod. Advantage of deployment is you can specify how many instances or how many copies of that pod should I be creating, right? So here we can specify replicas, and I have specified 3 because in our example, our travel guide was interested to book 3 tables for family of 4, right? And again, it can have its own labels. So the match labels here specifies this particular deployment is responsible for all the pods that is having a matching label of this kind, right? And then the template, right? So this template itself represents the pod template. So this specification is our pod specification. This is very similar to what the specification that we have here. It's not similar, it's exactly the same actually. So everything below this spec line number 16, it's exactly what we have in our pod, right? Only thing is I generalized the name. Instead of specifying bytes or bribes, I mentioned as father, mother, kid 1, kid 2 because the restaurant owner doesn't care what kind of family is coming in. All he cares about is there are 4 family members and then he needs to book a 3 similar table for this kind of a family, right? That sort of a deployment actually specifies. So it's as simple as that. Very simple YAML file again. The only addition is the replicas as we saw. To understand how deployments are different from pods, let's recreate the pod that we created last time. As you see, it's created a pod. Now let's create our deployment. Again, very similar command, kubectl apply -f. And now we need to specify our deployment file, which is Indian Travel Guide deployment.yaml. Now this has created a deployment. Now what does that mean? So we can run a new command called kubectl get deployments instead of pods because we created a deployment. And it shows that there is this deployment that got created. And the 3x3 here specifies the 3 replicas that we requested. So these are not the containers. These are the pod copies that we requested, right? And then all of them are already up to date and they are available, right? Now, what internally deployments does is they actually create the pods, right? If you go to kubectl get pods now, you see there is the Mr. Bytes pods that we created individually. And these are the 3 pods that it got created because of the deployment that we created. Right? So deployment automatically ensured that the 3 replicas that we requested for is already getting created. Now to make this more interesting, I am going to show a visual representation of this. Though this is the Mr. Bytes individual pod that we created. followed by these 3 pods which are created because of the deployment, right? Now, what is the advantage? Why can't we just create pods like this, and why do we even use a deployment, right? So one thing we saw, we can just create copies of pods much easily, right? The other thing is to ensure that it's always available, right? Now, as I mentioned, the scalability and reliability are the 2 powerful concepts of Kubernetes. This is how this is being achieved. So, for example, due to some reason, this pod gets deleted. Pods can be deleted using the command kubectl delete pod, thus specifying the pod name. Now, this pod is getting deleted. This because it's a local cluster, it takes some time, but usually it takes a little faster. Now, basically, we are removing this pod from our cluster, right? But as the pod is created individually, there is no trace of this pod is getting removed. So, in production, if you are creating pods like this, then you will have to keep monitoring whether the pod is available or not. If there is any problem, then there should be a person available who should come back and create that pod, right? That's what we are avoiding by actually using a deployment. So as you see, the pod is getting deleted and it also got removed from our visual representation. And there is no way it's going to come back, because if you do kubectl get pods again, we don't see that pod anymore. If we need to bring it back, we need to do kubectl apply -f, and then we need to create the pod again, right? But the advantage here, let's delete a pod that's created by the deployment. Same command kubectl delete pod, and let's take any pod created by the deployment, let's delete it. As you see now, the pods are still 3 replicas. So we deleted this pod. Let's again query the cluster to see what are the pods that are available. As you see, that pod is not available anymore. So instead we have a new pod that got created only 45 seconds ago. Why this got created? Because all we did was deleting this pod, right? That's why the deployment helps. So the deployment keeps monitoring your pod automatically, and it knows that we requested initially for 3 replicas, and now due to this deletion, the desired state that we specified in the specification is not met. The cluster is in 2 replicas, but you requested for 3 replicas. Deployment knows about this, and it immediately creates a pod to meet that specification, right? So that's the advantage of deployment, and that's how you maintain the scalability of your pods and also the reliability, so that the pod is always available with the number of replicas that you always wanted. Okay, next thing that you want to see is daemon set. This is the inspection squad that we talked about, right? So they are the food inspectors. They want to ensure an inspector or food critic sits in every cuisine room, right? So that's what daemon set does. And it's also pretty simple. You can just copy a deployment and create a daemon set. All you have to do is remove the replicas. I'll tell you why. But everything else remains exactly the same. I just simplified it because I don't want so many containers here. I just want one container. But other than that, it's exactly similar to the deployment file that we have here, right? I named it as squad lead. Of course, the analogy I changed from family to inspector. And it's as simple as that, right? We haven't mentioned anywhere replica, how many copies of your pod needs to run. But that's the beauty of daemon set. Let's try creating this one. Again, we have our visual representation here. As we can see, these 3 pods of the family is running here. They are eating in the Italian cuisine room. So I'm going to create the daemon set, right? So what happens? Let's see. It says daemon set got created. Keep looking at this visualization section. If I query the pods in the meantime, I see there are 3 pods running, which is our family, and there are additional 3 pods got created, which is the squads. As you can see, there is a squad lead created in every worker node, right? We have not mentioned anywhere replica that it needs to create 3 squad leads, right? But daemon sets automatically understands that there are 3 worker nodes, and it created squad lead in every worker node. Just like putting an inspector in every cuisine room. Also, you should notice it has not created anything in the control plane. This because the control planes are specifically tainted so that it won't take any workloads. Mainly because of the reasons that you don't want to put your workloads into a control node, so that if control nodes are getting overloaded, you might lose control over the worker nodes, right? So that's the reason. But if it's really required, we'll be able to push it there, but that's for a different session. For now, just understand DaemonSets creates a replica in every node automatically. So if there is a new worker node coming into this cluster, DaemonSets just create another squad into that worker node, right? Without even specifying anywhere, we need not scale it anywhere, but it will automatically happen. Another thing is, DaemonSets will always run only one replica of this squad lead in every worker node. It will not run anything more than that. You can never run two DaemonSets of same kind in the same worker node, right? So in case you need to scale up, then you can only scale horizontally by adding another node. The next component in our demo is a job. Just like any other Kubernetes resource, the kind has to be specified. Here the kind is job. And then we can additionally specify a name. Let's name it Pi. This particular job specification I picked up from Kubernetes official website itself. It's a very simple job that actually uses Perl to calculate the value of Pi. And it will print it up to 2000 spaces, right? We have an additional attribute here called backoff limit. What does it mean? A job can also have a possibility that it will fail when we try to do it, right? It could be because of a network limitation or due to a resource limitation. Due to any reason, your job can fail at any point of time. You can specify to Kubernetes cluster that I want this job to be retried for 4 times before you really mark this job as failed, right? And the advantage here is it won't retry the jobs immediately. It will retry the job exponentially, meaning it will try to retry it after 10 seconds and then 20 seconds, 30, 40, after a minute, up to 6 minutes, based on the number of retries that you requested. That way it's not immediately getting retried again and again, it gets failed, but eventually it waits for something to recover, right? Let's try creating this job. Command is very simple, again straightforward. kubectl apply and then give the file where you stored this job specification. Job got created. You can view the job using kubectl get jobs. As you see, the job has been marked as completed. Job also creates a pod. So as you can see, it created a pod with the name of the job -random characters. It has mentioned the status is completed. As compared to other pods, this status is different. The reason is jobs runs to a completion while other pods actually wait for some kind of request and then it try to respond. So it keeps on running to do this request processing. But for a job, it completes this particular task and then after that it goes to completion state. Now the next thing that we want to see is a cron job. Now we saw job as an example, right? In job, it completes a task and then it's done. If you want to do the same job again, you need to create another job. What if you want to do a particular task periodically? Then comes a cron job. This is very similar to the cron that you have heard if you have worked with Unix crons, right? You have a way to schedule this one, again using the same specification as a Unix cron. Here the kind is cron job. You can specify a name. This additional parameters called schedule specifies how frequently this particular job has to run. In our example, we are going to run it every minute. And all we are going to use is an image of BusyBox. We are going to do a print of the current date and also we are going to echo this hello from Kubernetes cluster every minute, right? This is again picked up from the Kubernetes official website, so nothing fancy here. Let's try creating this one. So now this is a cron job resource. So let's do kubectl get cron jobs. As you can see, it has created a cron job named hello and then the schedule has been shown here. Of course, it will wait for a minute before starting the first pod. So if you look at get pods, you won't find any pod created by the job yet because it has to wait for the first minute before starting running the first task. I'll just fast forward it to the 1 minute now. Okay, as you can see now, it created a new job called hello. Again with random characters, and then the status is completed. So this is very similar to job, except that it's going to do this every minute, right? A new job will be created every minute. So we saw what does a cron job look like. If you look at get jobs, this is the one that we created using a job kind, but this job got created based on this cron job. So basically cron job will create a new job every minute in our case, and that job will of course create a pod, right? So let's see what was the output of our pod. Using the same command kubectl logs, and then we are going to pass the pod name. It just printed when it ran, right? And then it also printed that echo statement, hello from the Kubernetes cluster. Now with that, we were able to explain with a demo how deployments work, which is our travel guide who helps to book table for a group of family members, right? A group of families. And then how daemon sets work, which in our example is an inspector squad who sits in every cuisine room to validate the quality of food, right? And then we looked at jobs and cron jobs. These are just tasks that are either run once or you can run them periodically using a cron job kind.